Hey everybody, Joe on BFAM Cooking. You know what this is, another cooking episode. And what are we doing? Today we're going to do the steak of poultry. That's right, the steak of poultry. What is that? Duck. If you haven't had it, you need to have it, especially with the crispy skin. I'm going to show you how to make sous-vide duck with a red wine reduction. It's going to be perfect and out of this world. And it'll impress your friends when they see that crispy duck end up on their plate. Let me tell you. Let's get into this. Okay, so what we're going to need for today, now it's going to be really simple and basic. I just realized that, you know, we didn't have duck, which we eat at least once every 2 weeks or so, right, on my channel. So I figured I'd show you guys how I do it. It's common for a lot of people who are doing sous vide to get it perfect. So I want to show you how I do sous vide duck breast. Now this duck is from Duck Canyon. The nice thing about it is that you can buy them in packs of, I mean, they come individually wrapped, and you can get them in a box of like 8. I think that's what it comes in. So really simple. All this is the breast, so there's really hardly any preparation you have to do for it, with the exception of salting, peppering, and adding some other fragrances that you may want, like thyme or rosemary, depending on who you are, or nothing at all, which is how we do it in my house, because my wife doesn't like as much thyme or as much rosemary on her meat, so we just keep it nice and clean in reference to that. Today we're using this bread and butter Pinot Noir to do our red wine reduction. You need about a cup of that. You're going to reduce it all the way down to a quarter cup. So, and some chicken stock, traditional, and those are all both reduced, and then you add a little bit of butter, and that's a done deal. And of course you have nice and simple, very simple. But this is really quick, relatively, as time goes. I like sous vide for 2 main reasons. One is it comes out perfect every single time. As long as you follow the time and temperature charts that you are required to follow for your proteins and things like that. In this particular case, it's going to happen to be 125 degrees exactly for this size of duck breast. You're looking at an hour and a half, right? And then it's perfectly medium. That's exactly the way you want it, right? No one can argue with you because I told you that's the way it was, right? You can leave the duck breast. I don't even trim it anymore. Chefs that I've heard of, when they're doing this, they like to trim it and make it look like a shape, and I'm like, I don't have time to reduce those pieces, and I don't want to throw it away. I paid for them, I'm gonna use it. So guess what? We're gonna use the whole skin side because we're gonna get that nice and crispy. Anyway, let's get into this. First thing we need to do is score, place everything else away. Oh, and the second reason, I'm sorry, second reason I like to do sous vide, not only does it come perfect every time, but it's a manageable amount of time. So you can just set it and forget it. You stick that meat into the sous vide machine, and you forget it for at least the hour and a half, right? In my particular case, it's definitely going to be in there just an hour and a half. But with the sous vide machine, you can keep it at that temperature. It'll never get overdone, right? And literally for, I don't know, 24 hours. I don't know why you would want to do that, but in this particular case, it will keep within 1 degree of the actual temperature you set it at, which means it can never be overcooked. Never be overcooked. So that means you can do potatoes, you can do sides. The biggest thing that I find that home cooks have a problem with is getting things, multiple courses ready at the same time. It's because you're distracted with trying to get the perfect chicken, the perfect beef, the perfect pork. Well, I can tell you, if you use a sous vide machine, the doneness is taken care of by the sous vide machine. You can focus on all the other sides, and then when it's time, you can bring the protein in, finish it with a Maillard reaction, however you're going to do it, the grill, the oven, a blowtorch, a frying pan, whatever it is that's going to give it that crust that everybody likes and improve the texture. Basted in butter, something like that. But you can control that because everything else is done. All you have to do is finish. It's going to take under 5 minutes to finish, but it can be held at that temperature. Really important to bringing everything to the plate at the same time. You know, it stretches the time out for cooking, but it controls the time. So, you know, 50, I guess. But just think about it, every time it'll be perfect. So if you bought a really expensive steak, 35, 40-day, 60-day aged steak, and you obviously don't want to mess that up on the grill. Well, what if I told you you can do it in a Sous-Vide machine at a reasonable temperature? Again, just happens to be, in my case, I like to do my steaks at like 125. And 2 inches thick, an inch thick is 2 hours, right? In the Sous-Vide machine, you take it out, and then all you have to do is just dry it, and then you can throw it in the grill. And then just all you're doing is turning it all the way up so it sears. It hits that temperature, and it gets it, and then it sears the outside, cooks the outside really, really rapid fast. Then you can do that with a blowtorch. I have a cooking torch, plumber torch. If you're smart, you go with the plumber torch, right? With a Searsol on it that just crisps. So when you cut into it, you'll see done. You'll see really, really cooked, and then not a gradient of meat textures, but you'll see just exactly medium rare, which is the way I like my steak, all the way through until the other side, the other edge that you get to. So you're supposed, even if you cook it. So with this duck, we're going to do something really simple, and all we have to do is we have to score it individually across the top to release the fat, and then give it a nice texture also, something nice to display. So we're not going to cut all the way through. And then we're going to bag it up with some salt and some pepper, stick it in the machine. 1 hour and a half later, it's done, and we'll be ready to go. So let's get to that cutting. For the cutting, I use a paring knife. This is our simple paring knife. You just do that cross cut. You don't want to cut all the way through the skin. You definitely want to get like maybe halfway down, but not all the way through. And you just go ahead and do a little cross hatch across it. And I just like to hit it a couple times just to make sure. So right across, nice and light, with a sharp knife. Doesn't have to be a paring knife. They're about a 1/4 of an inch apart. In one direction, and then a 1/4 of an inch apart on the other direction. Sort of like one of those hams. Those honey roasted hams that you've seen. You're trying to find a space to release the oils from the fat from the skin. All right, let me show you what that looks like nice and close. So the scoring, as you can see, is right in here. Like I said, you want to lightly score it. You don't want to go all the way through. You definitely don't want to go all the way through. You just want to lightly score the skin. Next up is we're going to add some salt and pepper. You want to get that salt in there, just rub it in there. And of course you want to do both sides. And then of course, you want to install it in the bag. I'm going to vacuum this up. So I have set to 125, so like I said, within a degree. It's going to go right directly into the sous vide machine, which has water in it. Right, it's going to sit there for an hour and a half, and that's basically it for the sous vide process. So for a red wine reduction, what do you need? You want to reduce by whatever the quantity is to a quarter of whatever you'd like. So if you do a cup of wine, then you'll be reducing it down to at least a quarter of a cup. In this particular case, I'm doing half a cup of wine that I'm going to reduce down to like an eighth. Right? And then we also have in there a quarter cup of chicken stock. The reason why we have a quarter cup of chicken stock is, one, it adds flavor and complexity to the sauce besides it just being wine. And two, I like it. No, only kidding. It has flavor in there. That's basically the reason why you want to do it. Chicken stock or beef stock or pork stock, if you have it or you can find it. It's the same stuff that you would use for, like if you're doing turkey gravy, so then you would do turkey broth or something like it, turkey stock, and then reduce that down to a quarter, right? It should be almost or very close to syrupy when it's done, right? But it's got to reduce, bring up to a boil, and it's just going to boil until it boils off all the water and comes down to a syrupy consistency, and you're going to add a couple of pads of butter in there, and then it's going to be perfect. Maybe a little salt. I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons or so of balsamic and 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. You need that vinegary sort of flavor in there to balance out all of these flavors. So we're getting close. It's reduced a lot. Below the quarter mark, as I said, you want to make sure that it turns out to have a little bit of that sticking power on your spoon. So let's just see where we're at here. Ooh, that's looking pretty syrupy to me. Looking pretty syrupy. Now, you don't want to burn it. Yeah, it's looking pretty syrupy. Yummy. I'm gonna turn the heat off. That's good and syrupy. Yeah, nice and thick. Let's just cool it off. Let's test it. Yep, it's perfect. It has reduced significantly. We got, it's really slow to move in the pan. It's perfect. All we have to do is just add some butter. It's basically 1 tablespoon of butter for the quantity we're talking about. 1 tablespoon of butter. So you should be getting a little bit of sweet and a little touch hint of vinegar in there, a little tangy. And then to bring it over the top, you need a little bit of salt and a little bit of black pepper. These are all to taste, so you're gonna have to determine that yourself, because I don't know what quantity you're making, so that would be a problem. So black pepper, in my case, that's a little bit. And let's go with the salt. Let that melt in there. Get that spinning. Ooh, glossiness is looking good. Butter's melting with no heat on. Okay, so our time is up on the duck. And it's time to take it out. I've taken it out of the sous-vide machine, and we're going to just dry it before we start the searing process. Because you can never sear a wet duck or wet anything. So you have to make sure it's as dry as can be. Cut the bag open. Get the product out. As you can see, it's not exactly looking the way you'd want it, meaning that it's not as edible as you would. Doesn't say yum to you or me, because we're only part way through the process. Duck like this needs to be dried. Needs to be dried. And it needs to be seared. I'm just going to pat it dry as much as we possibly can. Trying to get that skin as dry as much as you can. Whatever side you're going to put down first is your show side, the side that you want people to see. That's the side you're going to cook the most on. And for duck, you're going to enter it into a cold pan. Skin side down. No butter, no nothing, no oil, no nothing. Cold pan. Let's bring it over there and get the process started. Drying the outside of the duck will not dry it on the inside, so don't worry about that. It's time to render the skin. Now you will need a Pyrex glass container or container that can hold heat, because you're going to drain off, as you're cooking it, the excess oil that's going to run out of this duck in just a second. As you can see, it's starting to come up to 10. Should be laying flat. Now obviously you, in this pan size, which is an 8-inch, you can do, it looks like 3 different duck breasts in it at one time. If you need to do more, you don't want to crowd it, you need to start another pan. Crowding it will only do one thing, which is boil, as in boiling eggs, your duck. And you don't want that, you're trying to crisp. So you need space for it to dry. Yes, I am pressing down. Look at all the oil that's running out of this. I'm going to quickly show you where it's going. Going into that pan right there. Just going to hold it and pour off the excess. All of it. Now you want to reserve this oil for fries maybe. You know, duck fat fries are spectacular. You're not pushing it, you're just holding it down, getting as much, making sure that the protein has got as much surface touch to the actual metal pan as it possibly can. And you don't want more than a medium. You don't want to set the house on fire. As many times as I've tried this, I have smoked out my house over and over again. This is the best way to do it. Low and slow. And don't forget, the duck is already done. So you're not cooking the duck, you're just crisping the duck. Crisping that skin. Look at all that oil coming out of there. Reserve that duck fat, it's like gold. You have to buy it, it's extra. To buy it you can buy it in D'Artagnan, I know that, at specialty stores. Some supermarkets may carry it, I highly doubt it. It would be a good supermarket. I assume everybody's got a good supermarket near them. It's called Amazon. No. No, actually it is called Amazon. You want to render that skin. Making sure that the skin is at all times, at all places, touching the pan. Look at that. Look at that beauty. And the duck is done. Look how nice and thick that sauce is. Crispy, crispy skin. A little bit of pepper to finish. Some of that fancy salt over everything. Look at that, your little potatoes. Get it on. Definitely get it on the potatoes. They don't have anything on them. And over that poultry steak. Poultry steak, that's right. Not the same as the other stuff. The other red meat, as they say. Sous-vide duck breast, baked potatoes, and a red wine reduction. Okay, sous-vide duck, red wine reduction, and potatoes. Very, very good. Like steak, but not exactly. It's it's a poultry dish, but the crunch of the skin, you really can't beat it. So you don't lose that red meat sort of feel that you need to be a person who likes meat, like myself. But the salt, the pepper, and that sweetness and vinegar that you play on both cuts that fat like you wouldn't believe. You should try this sous-vide duck. Potatoes on the side. That red wine reduction can go with anything. Check you out later. BFAM cooking.